Well, coming up on today's show, order books open for the Hyundai Kona Electric EV, but only in the UK. A new hydrogen plant in Iceland could power buses and cars across the nation, and Volkswagen moulds its own production of battery cells in Europe. But first of all, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're listening in the world. Hello and welcome to the Friday, the 3rd of August edition of EV News Daily. It's Martyn Lee here with the news you need to know about electric cars and the move towards sustainable transport. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to say thank you. I know you've tuned in for the news, but bear with me. This is episode 200, and it's been a pleasure every day, without skipping a day, touch wood, it'll continue to research and write this little old show for you. As a few of you know, making radio shows is actually what I do for a living, and I'm fortunate to work on a couple of the UK's most popular radio stations, actually. So going from the safety of that during the day and coming home every night to make a podcast was genuinely terrifying, because I had no idea if this would ever find an audience. Largely because in the first month of doing it, literally nobody listened. But as the weeks went by and things picked up, I'm enormously grateful for that and your continued support. But what do I mean by support? Well, I'll spill the beans at the end of today's show, but just to say thank you for listening. And because you listen, it looks like I'm now able to connect with a bunch of good folk in the EV community who are, hopefully, fingers crossed, stepping in to help out with the ever-increasing costs on podcast hosting. And the more that people consume the audio and stream it, the more it ends up costing me personally, which is fine. I've been paying it for now, but it's getting bigger all the time, and it looks like that could be a real turning point as well. It means I can do more for you, do more research, more programs, more interviews, and it just eases loads of the pressure. More at the end of today's show. If you're not bothered, just turn it off when we finish the news, and then there you go. We'll get all the reaction from the Tesla earnings call as well towards the end of this show. But first of all, here in the UK, Hyundai's Kona Electric is now available to order via the company's click-to-buy platform, with the new EV offered in 2 battery configurations, according to the charging website ZapMap. Initially rolled out to be online only, the Kona Electric is going to be available through dealerships from next year. Until then, buyers are going to have to order via the website, with first deliveries expected in September. I was on there first thing this morning. I configured my car. I'll have a white one, please. Metallic white with the black interior, large battery, 64 kilowatt hour, premium SE. Go top spec, why not? And the price had already factored in. It was showing me a price of £31,000-ish, so that was already factoring in the £4,500 grant that we get from the government here for buying a plug-in car. I'm not sure it's officially on the list yet. I think they might still be waiting for some admin to be done for it to show up on the list, but the Hyundai website was taking that £4,500 off already, so the price I was seeing was the price I was going to be paying. But I didn't click the buy button. Wasn't quite feeling brave enough to spend £31,000 before lunch today. However, it is gorgeous and definitely on my. I know I got told off. I got told off for saying gorgeous, by the way, in the show notes, in a lovely way. By the way, all the comments to this show are lovely. No one is kind of internety and really grumpy, but someone did say, really, you described the Kona as gorgeous, and I just did it again. Then I'm so sorry. Okay, look. The new Tesla Roadster is gorgeous. The Rimac C_2 is gorgeous. The new Kona has a very large battery for not a lot of money. And I think that's quite gorgeous. Okay, moving on. This is a 7-week wait for this car if you were quick this morning. At the time of recording the podcast, though, all of those shipping dates, a bit like when the iPhone goes on sale, they all started slipping back, and now the shipping dates are 24 weeks away from today, apart from one single spec. So, the 39 kilowatt hour SE, the 39 kilowatt hour Premium with the two-tone roof, and then the bigger battery, 64 kilowatt hour Premium, 64 kilowatt hour Premium with a two-tone roof, 64 kilowatt hour Premium SE, and the big battery SE with the two-tone roof, all now 24 weeks away. You'll be waiting until, when's that, next year? That has definitely slipped back from this morning. If you are in a real hurry and simply must have your Hyundai Kona in the next 7 weeks, the only one you can get is the small battery, I think they call it like the standard, not small, and then the big one's long range. Standard battery, 39 kilowatt hours, premium spec, so you get the good spec, but only in solid black, metallic white, blue or red. And if you don't mind those colours and that spec, then you can have yours in 7 weeks' time. And I've been quite impressed as well with the Hyundai click-to-buy online ordering system. I don't know if I'd be very happy if I was a Hyundai dealer, because it makes the buying process really easy. I love what they've done with it, and there's all the options on there. Are you paying in cash? Would you like to do different finance, lease, or personal contract, or a regular loan? Here's the interest rates we can arrange for you. What car have you got at the moment? Put your rego in. How many miles has it done? This is what we'll give you for your old car. Click here to buy. And it looked super simple, and probably the frictionless way of buying cars that I would way prefer, because I'm quite happily sitting in a small dark room right now, talking to you, and thousands of people on a podcast, confident doing that. I hate negotiating. When we went to places like Africa, and you go and you see the markets and things, and they want you to barter, they want you to negotiate. I'll give you this, you give me. Oh no, you give me this, and I'll give you that. And it's like I don't get any pleasure in arguing over price. It's kind of why I like Tesla's way of doing it. And I don't know if there's more people like me in the world who don't particularly like going in for the big rough and tumble of the sales experience. It might well prove to be quite popular. Well, the Trump administration on Thursday, the 3rd of August, put forth its long-awaited proposal to freeze anti-pollution and fuel efficiency standards, significantly weakening one for Barack Obama's signature policies to combat global warming, writes the New York Times. The proposed new rules would also challenge the right of states like California to set their own more stringent tailpipe pollution standards, and that sets the stage for a legal clash that could ultimately split the nation's auto market in two. In the USA, the move immediately faced opposition from an unusual mix of critics, not only environmentalists and consumer groups, but alongside auto industry representatives and individual states, all standing together when sometimes they've been on opposing sides, all now launching efforts to change the plan before it gets finalised. It was pitched as a way to make cars great again. Well, moving on, an Icelandic power company says its new electrolyser is going to be able to supply every hydrogen car and bus currently operating in the entire country. According to Johnny Bairstow for Energy Live News, he says On Power, or ON Power, says its facility, which is being installed at a power plant in the southwest of Iceland, will enter operation by the end of this month, August 2018. It believes the sale of hydrogen for use in vehicles could begin as early as October, meaning filling stations providing the gas would no longer have to rely on imports. While the firm plans to distribute the hydrogen in bottles to prevent losses in transport and admits it does not expect the operation to be immediately profitable, but instead aims to catalyse the growth of a successful market for clean energy in the future. Bosses at the company say hydrogen cars do not need to compete with EVs, and imagine an ideal low-carbon vehicle in the future could be powered primarily by electricity and then be able to switch to hydrogen for long journeys in between gaps in the charging infrastructure. I'll put a link to that Energy Live News website page in the show notes. Well, Volkswagen is eyeing its production of its own solid-state battery cells with possible production from 2024 or 2025, its chief executive said on Wednesday. According to a Reuters report, a solid-state battery factory would likely be in Europe or even in Germany under the right conditions. Well, the CEO, Herbert Diess, said we must not make ourselves dependent on a few Asian manufacturers in the long term, end quote. He also said the battery cells are a key battleground in the automotive industry as it shifts to electric mobility. I'll put a link to that Reuters article as well in the show notes for you. Staying with Volkswagen, and maybe not such a positive, optimistic story, a charger containing traces of cadmium is causing headaches for management at VW, which says that because of the presence of the carcinogenic metal, VW may be forced to recall 124,000 of their EVs and hybrids. According to Bridie Schmidt, writing for reneweconomy.com.au, A spokesman for VW said this, and I quote, "Clarification is underway for a recall order by Germany's Federal Motor Transport Authority." End quote. Well, usage of cadmium, a metal used in electric appliances like TVs, has been banned in most types of car parts. An unidentified supplier to VW has, however, delivered a batch of battery chargers containing cadmium, which has been installed in some electric and hybrid cars of VW, Audi and Porsche brands from 2013 to 2018, says fizz.org. And the good thing here, in my personal opinion, is VW immediately going to the authorities with this. It's a tiny amount. It's sort of 0.0008 grams. So it's a tiny amount in a sealed component you'll never touch. But this is a potential headache for them, and perhaps potentially a public safety issue or not. The good thing is they've gone straight to the authorities and said, this is what happened. One of our suppliers has done this, and we'll take your guidance on what to do. The downside, of course, is it is another distraction from VW getting on with making electric cars and pure electric cars as soon as possible. Okay, let's get on to yesterday's earnings call then from Tesla, and some really interesting things coming out of it. And I could be here for the next hour, but I won't be, because there's so many better places and outlets online that you can get those real experts on Tesla. But I do follow it closely, and Wall Street's very happy. Wall Street over the moon with Tesla's quarterly results and guidance. So much so, the stock price today, I don't hold any positions in Tesla or have any reservations for their cars. Their stock price today through the roof. It was up from earlier in the week. I looked at it and it was at $291 a share. As I came in to record it, $351. An enormous jump in a couple of days, particularly after yesterday. Elon Musk's apologies to multiple analysts may even be more important to the company's shares. According to Tai Kim for CNBC on Wednesday, the post-earnings conference call, Tesla took its first questions from the two analysts that Elon had dismissed 3 months ago on that kind of explosive earnings call. And the company reported its first quarter results and those bonehead questions on that call, those now famous boring bonehead questions. That's the quote, sorry. Well, analyst Alexander Potter said in a note to clients yesterday, it could be the start of something big a few years from now, says Alexander. Investors may conclude that 2018, quarter two, was the quarter in which Tesla cemented its position as a truly formidable player in the global automotive market. They came with great news about plans to build the Chinese Gigafactory, Giga 3, not raising any capital through the traditional markets for that, but seeking local investment in China of $2 billion. And that all-important apology, well, there was a couple of them, but this was one of them from Elon Musk.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I'd like to apologize for being impolite on the prior call. Honestly, I think there's really no excuse for bad manners, and I was kind of violating my own rule in that regard. There are reasons for it, and that I'd gotten no sleep and been working 10-hour or 20-hour weeks, but nonetheless, there's still no excuse. My apologies for not being polite on the prior call.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We also heard on the shareholder call that the top 5 models of cars that people trade in when they've been picking up their Model 3 and trading in a car to form part of the payment for the Model 3 are models which you might not expect. We heard on the earnings call that they were, in alphabetical order, the BMW 3 Series, and that kind of makes sense to me. 3 Series owners moving to the Model 3, similar kind of size and price. The Honda Accord, which is interesting. Big, mass market, cheaper car. The Honda Civic, even more interesting. Huge market car and a cheap car. The Nissan Leaf, again, a cheaper car than the Model 3. And we're not talking about the $35,000 Model 3, which isn't on sale yet with the standard range battery. We're talking an average selling price. I don't know what the average selling price is of the Model 3. The performance model, $70,000. So people upgrade. It's a clear upgrade from a Nissan Leaf, not comparable at all. And a Toyota Prius is the 5th most traded in car. Those two would indicate tech-savvy, tech-friendly, forward-leaning or tech-forward-leaning drivers who have had a bit of electrified driving, but really wanted the Model 3. And so they're trading in their electrified and their hybrid cars. There's no specific breakdown in trim, but all five of those cars do have selling prices lower than the currently available Model S. The long-awaited $35,000 Model S, once again, reiterated it is coming early next year, reports Reese for Autoblog. Well, the final story from Tesla today is turning its cars into gaming devices. The firm's next software update is going to add, amongst other features, at least 3 classic Atari games that passengers, even drivers, because they probably won't work unless the car's pulled over and stopped and all those kind of things, will be able to play on the dash-mounted touchscreen. Now, the update is coming soon to the Model 3, the Model S, and the Model X, according to Digital Trends. Quizzed by journalists, Elon Musk revealed he hopes to include Pole Position, Tempest, and Missile Command, games released in 82, 81, and 80, respectively. Now, whilst Atari games represent the highlights of version 9 for many people of the new software, the update will include other important features outside of the infotainment system, including what Elon calls full self-driving features for certain vehicles. And this probably talks about, or relates to what he talked about recently, which was a kind of a 1 a.m. test drive he was taking, an early hours on-ramp, off-ramp test that he said was working really well. It bolsters earlier rumours claiming the next version of the autopilot will transition to level 3 autonomy, so the driver can take his or her hands off the wheel completely only when the right conditions are met in the right cars with enough cameras and sensors built in for it. Well, Audi's traffic jam assist technology is an example of level 3 automation. The autopilot interface, they say, will evolve to go along with the update as well. I'll put a link to that Digital Trends article in the show notes. So, a plug for tomorrow's show, Saturday's programme. I'm trying to do as many as I can of these interviews on Saturdays. I don't know why, it just feels right to do it because the interviews are a little bit more chatty, a little bit more laid back, a little bit less intense, because I always try and rattle through the news because I value your time. I know you're busy. All of our routines are different on a Saturday. We tend to have a busy Saturday and do all our chores, and then we have a lazy Sunday. But even so, people often aren't commuting, doing the typical 9 to 5 on a Saturday. So it feels right to do these interviews on Saturdays. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Tomorrow, it's going to be a company called Clean Car. Now, Clean Car are working with large fleets in particular, and they use a piece of hardware that goes in the cigarettes lighter. And what it does, it tracks via GPS the routes that drivers take and the journeys they take. And then after some analysis and a few journeys, it can recommend which type of EV or plug-in is best for you based on those fleets' journeys, miles, how far you need to go, and all those kind of things. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, actually, to find out more about... Because buying one car at a time is interesting, but a fleet buying 1,000 cars at a time all of a sudden makes a big difference to pollution levels. So I'm looking forward to that. By the way, I kind of realised as I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I work in radio for a living, and podcasts is part of that, but I don't get involved with the tech side of it, which is one of the reasons I started this earlier this year, was to fully understand myself, even though I work in an industry that does podcasts, the complete process from beginning to end, and see if I could make something literally from nobody listening at the beginning. And I kind of realised along the way that lots of people who make podcasts and even make content for online are really protective over their figures, either their downloads, their figures, all those kind of things. I don't know whether it's because they assume people will think their numbers are higher or lower. Is it like a locker room thing? Look at the size of yours. So in the show notes, by the way, which are always online and in all the usual podcast places, I'm going to put July's metrics in for you. All of July's touch points, the YouTube analytics, things like having an average view time of 9 minutes on the YouTube videos, 47,000 views in July on YouTube, about 430,000 watch minutes. Things like the podcast, 37,000 downloads in July of the podcast. And also the website, evnewsdaily.com. I've put the Google Analytics up there, and also the Twitter stats as well. I don't understand why anyone would keep these back unless they're trying to hide something, but honesty is everything, especially now in 2018. People, I think consumers see through your radar for BS. All of our radar for BS as consumers is so high. You can't hide anything anymore. You might as well just make everything public, and people will make their mind up. So, if you're interested or curious, I've put all of July's engagement in the show notes, and you can see exactly how many downloads and all those kind of things. I just don't know why you would keep it secret unless you're trying to game the system, tell people that you're bigger than you really are. I don't know. Anyway, so episode 200 today. 3 big things that I've been working on, all of which I really wanted to tell you about today, but I'll tell you about Sunday, because tomorrow's the interview. One of them is some very kind folk within the EV community helping me out with big time on paying for all the costs on this, and there's 2 other things that have come up time and time again that people have suggested I do, and so yes, they're happening. I just need a couple of hours to sort them. In the meantime, there's 199 previous episodes to be getting on with of the podcast on all the usual podcast places, plus the audio goes on YouTube and the blogs at evnewsdaily.com if you subscribe. And why wouldn't you? Because it's free. And it means you get them first and automatically. One less thing to think about, eh? We're all busy. On the socials, come and say hi by searching EV News Daily. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll catch you tomorrow.